Well, you know, y'all already know how it is over here. Okay. I am Joseph Rose, the host of the Common Sense Pros and Cons podcast. And there's only one con to common sense, and it is you will be angry. Okay, we in this one today, all right, we're gonna go over some of the bullshit with the left. Okay? I mean, typically that's what we do over here. But man, I woke up this morning, I started reading some news, and then I chose violence, okay? Cuz it's it's not it's not even like, yes, people telling lies is irritating, right? Obviously. But what's more irritating is people fucking believing the lies, right? That's the issue. And what's up, Sylph? How you doing? I've been informed that Defiance will return. There's nothing they can say or do that will ruin today. X Defiance? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, I think I saw earlier too that you started streaming, right? Yeah, I wasn't able to catch that because I ended up just taking a nap like shortly after you fucking started streaming. But we're gonna go over some stuff mainly concerning um some random shit like Supreme Court rejecting a religious case. But mainly like this immigration incident right here, right? With this dude named Mahmoud Khalil, right? Fucking beard hairs, bro. Oh, blah. Um, because this shit is actually it's a big deal, and this is actually what a lot of people have been looking for. And and rightly so, right? And this is the way that it actually does work in this country, and it actually has worked. But for so long, liberals, unelected bureaucrats, liberals, right? A majority of them in the government have defied actual precedents for so long. They've established a new precedence. And that's the issue with kind of how our country operates, right? This country, no nation should operate based off of precedents, okay? Because when you operate based off of precedents, sometimes that shit's antiquated, okay? Precedents should be taken out of the equation, and it should just be what the fuck the law says, okay? Because what's the point in having a law if somebody sets the precedents that you disobey the law, right? It literally makes no sense whatsoever. And that this the reason I say that is because that is exactly what the left has, that is the precedence they have created surrounding many contentious, in quotations, issues, that a lot of people face today, right? Like illegal immigration. They're the ones who have created a precedence for to try to act like illegal immigration and the children of illegal immigrants, or immigrants for that matter, are by default citizens. No, the fuck they weren't. No, the fuck they aren't. Right? You really believe, okay, for people on the left, because they believe that the United States is the worst country to ever be, and we're the ones who've done the only terrible things ever, right? You really think at the height of racism in this country, to the point of there being a civil war, and then immediately following that, right, the amendments introduced to actually integrate former slaves in into American society by giving them citizenship. You really think the people surrounding those amendments were like, "Oh yes, and we also meant illegal immigrants." Right? No, fuck no they didn't. Right? That's a stupid fucking belief to have. If you think that, you can't on one hand say the country, like the United States, was the most racist and we had slavery and all this other shit, But apparently it was super progressive at the height of slavery too, right? To where that they were talking about, oh yeah, illegal immigrants can come into this country whenever the fuck they want. It's perfectly fine. And on top of that, then they can give birth, and then those kids are citizens. What kind of logic does that fucking follow? Right? Also, it was just me playing Sabak, so you didn't miss much besides me fucking winning. I don't know why, but I've spent so much time with you whenever I read your messages. Like, if I when I'm not reading them out loud or something like that, I read them like how I feel you would say them. Okay, so we're gonna get into this, right? So there was some grown ass man named Mahmoud Khalil at the University of Columbia, okay, protesting in support of Hamas. Okay, now don't get me wrong. If you want to bring up terrible shit that Israel has done to the Palestinians, fine, but you better also acknowledge the terrible shit that Palestinians have done to Israelis, right? Or Jews. You better like if we want to sit down and have a conversation about Muslims being oppressed, you better be ready to have a conversation about Jews being oppressed and about Christians being oppressed. And you better be ready to have a conversation about why the fuck there are so many more Islamic terrorist attacks across the Western world than there are any other kind of attack, right? So Mahmoud Khalil, who's a green card holder, right? He has a green card. He's a permanent resident, okay? Which um I don't know how the fuck he would be a permanent resident. Uh because I heard that he was married, but I don't know how long he's been married. I don't know, right? But he supports Hamas. And I just want y'all to understand that Hamas is linked to the Muslim Brotherhood. In even Egypt and Saudi Arabia recognize Hamas as a terrorist organization, right? Which means that there are other Arab Muslim nations that recognize Hamas, an Arab Muslim terrorist organization, as a terrorist organization. Not only that, Hamas is the government of Palestine. So there's either two options there. They were either justly elected by the Palestinian people, which means the Palestinian people openly advocated for, endorsed, and continue to endorse terrorism and terrorist organizations, or you come out and say Hamas is fucking terrible and they're holding the Palestinian people hostage through threat of force. Right? Those are your two fucking options. There is no secret third option. Oh my God, they're such nice people and they're resisting oppression. Look, I don't care. I don't care what your motivation is to commit terroristic acts. It doesn't make you any less of a terrorist. When what you do, when the intent behind what you do is to spread terror amongst civilians, right? Local populace, when all of your actions are to spread terror, to enact your political, economic, religious fucking agenda, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if all of your actions are the intent behind them is to spread terror, you are a fucking terrorist. If you achieve your objectives through spreading terror, you are a terrorist. Period. That's like English is a very specific language, and this is why fucking Shakespeare expanded English so drastically, is because the English language is extremely specific. This is why in a ton of other languages, they don't have words that translate to a lot of our words. Or they have a word, but it's generalized, right? Like we have a fuck ton of different ways to talk about the beauty of something, right? Beautiful, gorgeous, pretty, whatever the fuck you want to say, okay? In a lot of other languages, they don't. They just have like one word that roughly translates to beautiful or something like that, right? English is a very specific language. Definitions mean something. Fuck, second. No, you're not second. I don't know if you could see the chat, but Sylv jumped in the chat and he was the first one to comment, but he said second. And then I was fucking around saying I was first, right? So actually, in fact, you are first, Matt. So all this is besides the point, right? Mahmoud Khalil's actions as opposite of free speech, says Cornell, anti-Israel mob, not a surprise. Okay. Let's read an earlier article, I guess, about it. Well, let's hop into this real quick from Caroline.
Last question here on Mahmoud Khalil. Does the administration...
The last question here on Mahmoud Khalil, right?
Believe that it needs to charge a green card holder with a crime to be eligible for deportation?
Well, in fact, Secretary Rubio reserves the right to revoke the visa of Mahmoud Khalil, and I'm glad you brought this up. Under the Immigration and Nationality Act, the Secretary of State has the right to revoke a green card or a visa for individuals who serve or are adversarial to the foreign policy and national security interests of the United States of America. And Mahmoud Khalil was an individual who was given the privilege of coming to this country to study at one of our nation's finest universities and colleges. And he took advantage of that opportunity, of that privilege, by siding with terrorists. Hamas terrorists who have killed innocent men, women, and children. This is an individual who organized group protests that not only disrupted college campus classes and harassed Jewish American students and made them feel unsafe on their own college campus, but also distributed pro-Hamas propaganda, flyers with the logo of Hamas. That is what the behavior and activity that this individual engaged in.
And I'm just gonna say, if you are passing out flyers with the logo of Hamas, you are aiding and abetting, right? And there's no place for that in my fucking country. Thank you very much, right? So, for everyone who doesn't know, the reason that all these fucking protests are happening is because Palestine and Hamas wanted to fuck around and find out with Israel. And October 7th of 2023, they launched a sneak attack on Israel. They slaughtered over 1,200 almost completely civilians, right? By proxy, because of how Israel works, right? With mandated service. Some of them were like off-duty soldiers or police officers or something like that. But almost exclusively, all of them were innocent civilians. Then Hamas proceeded to take 250 hostages. And Arabs all over the world, there's videos of Israel getting these hostages back, of these hostages being beaten, emaciated from being starved and dehydrated. They have stories talking about being beaten or raped or something like that, right? And I even had a Muslim Arab tell me that he thinks it's perfectly acceptable for people to take hostages. And he claims to be all about peace and all this other kind of dumb shit that came out of his mouth, right? You can't be someone who supports peace, or you want to talk about oppression and then support taking hostages. That's fucking insane. Like, that's clearly hypocritical. But that's unfortunately the reality of Muslims, is they do not practice what they preach, and it's rules for thee, not for me, when it comes to Islam. Okay? So whatever, because of that, there's been a war in Palestine. Israel's been pushing their shit in because they wanted to fuck around and find out. I don't care. They could really just kill each other back and forth. I don't care. That's what's going to happen because the Palestinian people are extremely aggressive, and the history of Israel has been so tumultuous that it's made the Israelis a very high octane nation as well. Okay, so now you guys have the background. Ever since then, Islamic extremist supporters in this country have been protesting all across the U.S. at major college campuses. And all of these college campuses, for some odd reason, seem to get hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars from Middle Eastern countries for like Islamic studies and stuff like that. Huh, surprise. So then there's this dude named Mahmoud Khalil who's here on a green card, right? And he's been granted this green card because he's married to an American citizen, right? And he was going to a university, Columbia University in New York, and instead of actually following through on his education, he feels the need to protest, which is not something that he actually has a right to from whatever fucking country he comes from, right? Most other countries, there is no enshrined right to protest whatsoever. So he wants to come here and abuse what's being afforded to him by our culture, because our culture is better than most fucking other people's cultures. Okay? And he's on a green card. And some people want to argue that he has the right. I don't think so. I'm sorry. I don't think so. Protections are applied to all kind of people who come to this country. I don't believe in universal fucking rights, right? I don't. I'm sorry. Yes, I do believe in the fact that we have God-given rights, and that's fine. Those are God-given. You can't take those away, and no man on earth has the ability to take those away. But having rights does not mean that you are immune from consequences of said rights. And if you come here to this country and use our rights to then espouse anti-American shit, I'm sorry, get the fuck out of here. You're gone. I don't care. If you do not actually support freedom of speech for everybody, you do not get freedom of speech. Okay? Unless you are someone who doesn't support freedom of speech for people who don't support freedom of speech, right? And you could say that's hypocritical, because that's how I operate now. I used to be someone who believes in freedom of speech. I disagree with you, but freedom of speech. No. If you seek to oppress other people's freedom of speech, predominantly this is a big thing with leftists, right? They want to talk about freedom of speech, but not actually support fucking freedom of speech. But try to make it out that, but they always believe in freedom of speech when it comes to theirs, but they don't believe in freedom of speech when it comes to yours. I'm sorry, then you don't get freedom of speech. I will not defend your right to freedom of speech. You won't defend mine, I won't defend yours. Reciprocity, right? Like, you know, there's a reason. All right, so he's here protesting, supporting Hamas, leading campaigns coordinated to attack Jewish students or terrorize Jewish students. Get the fuck out of here. Like, that's all I have to say. Right? Now let's come over here. Jewish student slams Mahmoud Khalil's actions as opposite of free speech, says Cornell anti-Israel mom.
To bring him back, we're seeking to have him released. And we're going to do that whether it's in federal court or an immigration court. There are limits.
Immigration court is federal court.
How long a person can be held in immigration court. But frankly, that's irrelevant, because we are going to ask for him to be released as expeditiously as possible, and we will do that in any court that will hear us.
Yeah, the government has basically admitted that they're punishing him for his views that are contrary to the government's views.
Wow. Isn't that why everybody gets punished? Isn't that... No shit, right? You break the law, but you don't feel you're breaking the law. But in contrast to the government, whether it's state or federal, you broke the law, so you get punished for that? No shit. No shit. Look, if we're gonna talk, if leftists like this fucking cheeseburger eating, living in his mom's basement, fucking balding fuck wants to say with this veiled language and wants to play the victim kind of deal, right? Oh, the government's punishing him for his views. Yeah, well, that's kind of how all societies work, is they punish people for their views. terrorists think it's okay to terrorize people and kill people based on their views, and somebody has a problem with that based on their views, so then someone punishes someone based on their views or the opposition of their fucking views. No shit, right? So, and you know what? You can say my argument, yeah, like, come on, I'm just kind of being an asshole about it. No shit, because this guy's being an asshole about it. He doesn't want to be upfront, so I'm not going to be upfront, right? Hell yeah, you get freedom of speech if you protect it for everyone. Exactly. If you don't defend other Americans' constitutional rights, I don't believe the constitutional rights or protections extend to you, right? If we want to have disagreements and different worldviews and stuff like that, that's fine. But at the end of the day, we're supposed to be Americans, and we're all supposed to adhere to the Constitution and believe in the Constitution. And we can even have differences on that, right? Like you don't believe in the Second Amendment, but it's in the Constitution, so you support it. That okay, all right, then we have no issue, right? I support freedom of speech. I hate your leftist fucking viewpoints because you're completely irrational. You're hypocritical. You go back on everything whenever it doesn't suit you. And sure, you can argue that everybody kind of does that, right? But the left is egregious with that shit. The left right now, for being upset with Donald Trump effectively shutting down the government, like Donald Trump is reducing the government. So the Democrat response to being upset about Donald Trump shutting down the government is for them to not vote on this continuing resolution in order to shut down the government. So they want to punish the government for shutting down the government by doing exactly what the government wants and shutting down the government. Because they are so fucking over emotional and so like erratic that they don't even begin to transcend any line of fucking logic. It's insane.
And that's just an obvious piece of authoritarian logic.
Notice, why would he be saying authoritarian logic? It's not authoritarian. No fascistic or authoritarian or monarchy or any other form of government, right? How they're trying to call Trump a dictator or some shit. You don't get into government and begin to reduce the size and the power of government, and you're a fascist. It's literally impossible, because the whole government structure behind a fascistic dictator or a tyrant or something like that gives all the power to a sole individual. What? You can't get into government and reduce the size of government and begin to take power away from the government and give it back to the states, and then also be a dictator. Like, it's impossible, right?
That we cannot tolerate as long as we live in a democracy. It's totally
we don't live in a democracy. We live in a constitutional republic.
The government is claiming, and this is really a question for the government. The government is claiming that because of the time he filed a habeas corpus petition in this court, he was already in New Jersey. They had already moved him to New Jersey as part of their plan, again, to move him 1,000 miles away to Louisiana, to take him away from this court, from his lawyers, from his support network. And of course...
Wow. Huh. It's almost like the federal government did that to 1,500 January 6th protesters. Took them out of everywhere across the country that they lived in and brought them to D.C. that voted 93% in favor of Democrat candidates because D.C.'s completely unbiased, right? Right? Took them out of their districts, out of their support networks, away from their family, moved them thousands of miles across the country to D.C. in order to prosecute them in D.C. in a completely biased jurisdiction. Huh, interesting.
The goal in all of this is to silence not just Mahmoud, but to silence anyone who will speak in defense of Palestinian lives and rights. And clearly,
Crazy. What the fuck are you doing in the United States protesting for some other country's rights? That doesn't fucking make any sense. How about you go to Israel or you go to Palestine and you protest for their rights there? How about you protest against Hamas to relinquish their control over the Palestinian state so maybe the Palestinian people can elect a government that's not getting its people slaughtered because it wants to fuck around and find out. Anyways, I don't care to keep listening to this fucking dude, but anyways, federally detained Columbia University agitator Mahmoud Khalil's case is not about free speech, a Jewish student told the Post after his school, Cornell, was the latest to be caught up in disruptive anti-Israel protests. Sam Friedman, a 21-year-old junior at Cornell's College of Engineering, was at the Ithaca, New York campus's Bailey Hall on Monday night when a mob shouted down the Israeli and Palestinian speakers who had gathered for the event entitled Pathways to Peace. But despite the host's noble intentions and the participation of both sides in the conflict, including former Israeli Foreign Minister Tzipi Livni and former Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority Salam Fayyad, Monday's talk quickly descended into chaos. So this was literally a summit between both representatives or former representatives of both sides of this historic conflict. Right? Sitting down in a spirit of cooperation to discuss whatever the fuck they were discussing. And anti-Israel fucking agitators like Mahmoud, right, wants to disrupt it and shut it down because he doesn't want peace. Because the Palestinian people and people who support Palestine, they don't want peace. They want the complete and total eradication of Israel. That's what they want. I'm a big free speech advocate. I think free speech is really important, and what these people did at Cornell is the opposite of free speech, Friedman told the Post. They intentionally block people from speaking freely. No shit, because that's what the left does. They claim to have free speech to oppress other people's free speech. The organizers of the protests and walkouts at Cornell Students for Justice in Palestine now face suspension as a registered campus group, the college's interim president Michael Kotlikoff confirmed. It comes as fury has erupted on many campuses across the U.S. following the arrest of Columbia graduate Mahmoud Khalil on Saturday by ICE agents for his role in anti-Israel campus protests where sick flyers glorifying Hamas were distributed. The Trump administration believes the U.S. has legal justification to deport Khalil 30, a green card-holding Palestinian who received his graduate degree from the Ivy League school in December. So he's already graduated, but he's back on campus, right, on private property, leading harassment campaigns. It's a position Friedman supports. Jesus Christ. All I have to say is if you fucking Americans in this country think Middle Eastern culture is so amazing, why don't you go live in the Middle East? Middle Easterners in the United States are night and day difference between actual Middle Eastern culture and how their societies are run. Because the same liberals in the United States who support Middle Eastern culture do everything in their power every single day to attack Christianity and claim because Trump has a relationship with God, he's turning this country into a theocracy, right? And they're like, oh my God, separation of church and state. Go live in the Middle East. Every single Middle Eastern nation is a theocracy. It is literally a theocratically run government in every Middle Eastern country because Islam is not just a religion. It specifically highlights how it should govern its people, which are Muslims. So every Islamic nation on planet Earth is a theocracy because the Quran dictates how the society is run at the end of the day, right? That's why call to prayer is a thing in fucking basically all Middle Eastern countries, right? It's a big thing, and it's not just the culture. It's not like church bells ringing or something like that. It's fucking offered up by the government, right, to ensure that it's fucking happening. Go live in the Middle East. In the case of Khalil being deported, this is not about free speech. It's about material support for terrorism. Freeman said it's not about free speech when you're vandalizing and destroying stuff. Exactly. Exactly. This week, Cornell University was one of 6 Ivy League universities featured on a list of more than 60 colleges under scrutiny from Trump's Department of Education for alleged rampant anti-Semitism. Other elite institutions named and shamed include Brown, Columbia, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, as well as local schools, blah, 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 blah. Man, Christy Noem's a pretty woman. Freeman was not surprised by the announcement of the probe in the campus anti-Semitism at Cornell, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, right? I mean, all I have to say about this is you have a green card, and when you're on a green card, you are being afforded a temporary privilege by the U.S. federal government and extension the American people to come to this country and live in this country and work in this country. You know, like, you're being afforded the privilege. You are not given a right. You're not given a right. It's a fucking privilege being afforded to you. And maybe what you should do is wait until you become an American citizen before you start fucking running your mouth and doing crazy shit. Because guess what? Like, there's worse repercussions for actual American citizens who are doing shit like Mahmoud is what Mahmoud is doing, right? And I'm sorry, I don't care. I'm sick and tired of conservatives defending this shit. No, fuck this dude. He wants to see our country destroyed to where you don't have any rights. That is what the left wants. So guess what? I am done supporting their rights. I'm done. I don't care. I'm done. Fuck that. And guess what? For this dumb bitch and this dumb bitch right here, oh my God, let's get into it. Right here. Huh. Oh shit, what is this? Oh my God, www.govinfo.gov. Oh shit, oh my God. What? How did this get on my screen? Holy shit. Right? Are y'all ready for this? Subsection I, section 222 of the Immigration and Nationality Act. After the issuance of a visa or other documentation to any alien, the consular officer or the Secretary of State may at any time in his discretion. You know what that means? That means that the consular officer or the Secretary of State can just be like, I don't like you. Your shit's revoked. Now, obviously, that doesn't happen, right? Because American culture typically has higher standards than that. But that at their discretion, the consular officer, right? There's consular officers all over the fucking world because there's consulates and consular sections of embassies in almost every country on planet Earth, right? The consular officer or the Secretary of State may at any time in his discretion revoke such visa or other documentation. Notice of such revocation shall be communicated to the Attorney General, and such revocation shall invalidate the visa or other documentation from the date of issuance, provided that carriers or transportation companies and masters, commanding officers, agents, owners, charterers, or consignees and reliance on such visas or other documentation, unless they receive due notice of such revocation prior to the alien's embarkation. There shall be no means of judicial review, including review pursuant to section 2241 of Title 28 United States Code or any other habeas corpus provision in sections 1361 and 1651 of such title of a revocation under this subsection, except in the context of a removal proceeding if such revocation provides the sole ground for removal under section 237A1B. Okay? And I'll just tell you right now what this subsection is right here. What that talks about, okay, is the fact that if that someone's green card is being revoked and they are then to be deported, and the reason for them being deported is only because their green card's being revoked, then there is a form of judicial review. That is the only context in which there is judicial review of revocation of green card statuses. So it is potential that Mahmoud receives a due process for this revocation. I don't believe he should, because I don't think that the revocation of his green card is just to revoke his green card, right? But that's what they're gonna claim, because they other charges as of yet haven't been filed against him, right? So there might be judicial review. Personally, his green card should be revoked and he should be deported back to whatever country he came from. That's it. Simple as that. You want to come to this country, you want to fucking reap the fruits of our labor, of our forefathers and stuff like that, then you better pay homage to our forefathers and to our fucking nation. And if you're spouting anti-American fucking rhetoric, you're supporting terrorist organizations that have the stated mission of destroying the United States and destroying Israel, right? I'm not too focused on the Israel part right now, right? Because that's not my country. My country is the United States, right? That is their mission statement, is to kill Americans, to destroy the United States. That's part of the charter of Hamas. Okay? Then I'm sorry, you're getting the fuck out of here. I think he should be charged with aiding terrorism. The DOJ needs to come out and press charges against him. They need to validate him passing out pro Hamas fucking forms or whatever. Press charges against him and say that's the underlying reason for the revocation of the green card. So there's two options here. Either we go to court and then you basically end up in prison for charges of terrorism or aiding terrorism or terrorist organizations or whatever it may be, or you get deported back to your country. Getting deported back to your country is probably the best option, right? But this is the thing, right? I don't come to y'all out of my ass. I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of fucking political shit. Okay? Kill that bot. Do it. Do it. I need to make you a mod, Sylv. That's what I need to do. Let me get this fucking bot out of here real quick. There you go. Deported. All right. So, Immigration and Nationality Act, Section 222, subsection I, literally gives the authority to the Secretary of State or a consular officer to, at their discretion, revoke a visa. There is no judicial review for the revocation process, with the exception of the sole ground for removal is, or for deportation is removing the green card or revoking the green card. Okay? But all the judicial review is that a judge is basically reviewing, like, okay, why did you so, because they're not reviewing that, they're going to review why the green card was revoked, but the actual matter at hand in which the judge is warranted is deportation. Okay? So the judge is like, why are we deporting this individual? And the government goes, we are seeking to deport this individual because we revoked his green card due to X, Y, and Z. And then depending on the judge is like, okay, it seems that was it's warranted behavior or not, kind of deal.